the painting that you post, I mean, it was a while ago, and the one that really got me was like, oh, I was like, it was the Whistler's Mother, but it was V for Vendetta.
It was Heath Vendetta.
I
Yeah, because it
was,
was
I was,
November.
I showed that to like a few of my friends, and some people did not know that Whistler's Mother is a painting, and that got me thinking about this idea that like there are, especially with I think now that we have more of a, not only do we have more of a short attention span, we also are deleting a lot of knowledge that we acquired because we were like, oh, we don't need that anymore.
Right.
Like, so I don't really need to know who Whistler's mother is, I don't need to know that because I'm never really I don't think I've ever seen that painting in real life. I don't think I want to see it. But
Yeah,
I was
sure.
like, oh, this is something I like. I don't even need to know what it references to like this thing. So that got me thinking about this idea that, like, what is originality really a thing where, like, you're using these characters that, like, V for Vendetta was, when did he write it? Like, Alan Moore wrote that in the 80s or something.
Yeah,
And then the movie was like, 20 years later, and that was an adaptation. So
yeah.
they changed a lot of things. And
Right.
then you're painting Star Wars and Simpsons and all these guys on a painting that you didn't originally paint. Like,
Right.
so I really think that with pop culture, like, is ownership really a thing anymore? Because I think I own The Simpsons too, because they're my childhood,
Well, it's interesting with that, yeah, because that's while I do think that I try to make sure that my artwork sort of brings a sense of levity and that people don't too carefully overanalyze every little thing. The one thing that I would say, if there is a sort of philosophy behind it, is that exactly what you just said, where the zeitgeist of a generation, is the sort of ownership of that. And like, my parents and their grandparents, or their parents rather, owned this, like, what at the time was pop culture, was like a lot of times these paintings that I'm sort of, repurposing to bring back into our current generation with, the pop culture, like you said, that you feel like you own. So it kind of like, and that's always something that's been a little bit fascinating to me, is the first of all, the idea of taking things that seemingly don't belong together and putting them together, but also like, and I think this came back to, I remember that one of my first jobs writing software was all virtual, and we were having a meeting, and you would sign on to like Skype or whatever it was at the time, GoToMeeting or something like that. Sorry, my dogs are playing in the background, so you might hear a little bit of scratching. But anyways,
all right. Yeah.
It would do this sort of roll call, and it was like, somebody would say, is Dave here? And then somebody else did the whole like Cheech and Chong thing. Dave's not here. And I chuckled a little bit, but at the time I was like maybe 8 years younger than the person who said it. And she was like, oh, you're too young. You wouldn't get that. And I was just because I was born after, and I was maybe I was born in the late 70s, but like, either way, because I was born after that doesn't mean that I was too young, or that I am too young to like know what this is or to have consumed this bit of pop culture. You know what I mean? So like that got me to think, that's always stuck with me, and it's always made me think like, who, just because it's like the current pop culture, does that mean like the older generation doesn't own that or wouldn't get it, or some of the older stuff we wouldn't get? So bringing all of that stuff together to me is kind of like a way to sort of combat that.